The problem with reviewing headsets in 2025 is that the market is absolutely drowning in them. You cannot move for gaming headsets. I mean, it's all the way stuff from like $8.99 at the cheapest shop you can find all the way up to hundreds of pounds. They're all promised surround sound or studio quality microphones and comfort so transcendent that you forget you're wearing them until you stand up and accidentally grot yourself with the cable. And every single one of them claims to be the best value for money, the most comfortable, the cleanest audio. And what does that even mean? Wait, the cleanest audio, what does that mean? You know, every single one of these headsets at some level now is just digital. The audio is clean. You're not getting artifacts. You're not getting added hissing, even on the cheaper ones. The audio is at least clean. So what in God's name are we talking about? The cleanest audio? What are we doing? Washing it with bleach or something? You know, I'm a content creator by trade, and across all of the jobs that I've had in the last 32 years, audio has been the one that I have always gravitated towards. At one point, I was playing music in a band. At one point, I was doing radio production. And with each job, you learn a little bit more. And actually, the thing that you learn is that every single headset will add a certain character to your audio. Now, if you want truly clean audio, studio quality audio, you actually want a headset that gives you as flat a response as possible. So that when you start to mix something, you know that you're not listening to a coloured sound. But gaming headsets are different. Gaming headsets shouldn't have that sort of clean audio. They should have some character to them, something that makes them stand out from the crowd. So when Fifine contacted me about the H13, I'll be honest, my initial reaction was interested but skeptical. Now, if you go and search for the Fifine H13, you won't find it. There's a link in the description if you want to see it, by the way. And that's not an affiliate link this time. They gave me just links to Amazon, and I'm going to put that in. But whilst the company calls itself Fifine, that's just how you're meant to pronounce it. It's spelt for fine. So if you want to find Fifine, you need to type for fine, because typing fine won't find for fine, which is fine, but it's not fine if you're trying to find for fine and you keep typing fine instead of for fine. And honestly, fine. I'm fine with for fine being fine, and that's all fine. I'm going mad here. Now, Fifine have a long history of developing cheap microphones that nevertheless produce really good results. A lot of content creators use them. I know a lot of people who've bought them over more expensive microphones. They may not be the top of the range results, but they will get you from A to B and through a lot of the rest of the alphabet before you need to change lanes. And they've done the same thing again, because some of the features that you will find in the H13s are the same sort of things that you will get on $100 plus headphones. But they're cramming them into a 59 quid package. Now, I'm using UK money for that because I'm not 100% sure what these go for in the States, but they must be comparable. The H13 is a USB headset. There's no wireless or 35mm jack option, which means that if you're an Xbox gamer, then this conversation ends here. Xbox doesn't do USB audio. PC and PS4 and PS5 gamers, you're golden. You're also going to have a problem with Android here as well, not least because this is USB-A and not USB-C. To be fair to them, they don't claim that this is going to work on anything other than Windows and Mac. But if you're a handheld gaming enthusiast and you've spent all of your hard-earned money on one of the new ROG Xbox Allies or the Legion Go 2s, then you might be looking for a cheaper alternative for a gaming headset. And that's where I think this set really shines. But how does it perform in some real-world testing? Well, let's check these things out and see whether they're a sound investment or completely off-key. In the box, the Fifine H13s don't give you much. There's no theatrical reveal. There's no clouds of dry ice blowing when you lift the lid. It's packaging and it does its job. Inside, you get the headset, a detachable boom mic, and absolutely nothing else of consequence. The instructions are actually quite well written and easy to follow, and you have to download the app from their website if you want to make the most of all the features. I have heard tell that if you buy this in certain territories, you get a carrying pouch as well, but I'm not 100% sure that's true. Certainly in Britain, we don't get anything like that. It's as if Fifine looked at a map and thought, yes, British people, they famously never leave the house. They won't need to carry it anywhere. So if you were hoping for a nice little bag because maybe you've read a review of it somewhere else, tough luck. You'll have to use your Tesco's carrier like everybody else. Whilst unpacking might not be the most luxurious experience in the world, once you take these out and take a look at them, things change. Because the build quality here is immediately obvious. This is built a bit like a tank. You've got metal brackets that connect the ear cups to the headband, and there's a satisfying heft to it that screams, "I will survive the apocalypse." The ear cups and the headband are covered in a sort of faux leatherette, the sort of thing that Tesla calls vegan leather. And I found that they actually feel really nice to the touch. They're very well padded and they sit comfortably on the head. Although I don't have the smallest head in the world, and even at their smallest setting, there was a bit of a worry that they might fall off. But once they're on, they are surprisingly comfortable despite the weight. This thing comes in at around about 390 grams. The clamping force is firm, but it's not aggressive. And I think you could probably wear this for several hours without too much of a problem. It's what you want with a gaming headset. These are over-the-ear ear cups, though, and whilst they have a really nice feel to them, they do start trapping heat after a while. This is the same with all over-the-ear headphones. But if you find that you're sensitive to that sort of thing, then you do need to know about it. Oh, and the ear cups don't swivel. Now, some people are going to find that a deal breaker. Other people aren't going to care about it at all, but this is a fairly basic feature that you get on a lot of headsets. So not having that can be a little bit of a pain, especially if you like to put your headphones around your neck during breaks. The microphone is easy to attach. It just pushes in with what looks like a 3.5mm headphone jack. But there's a particular shape to it, so you can't put it upside down, which is brilliant, because you don't want to start a gaming session only to realise that your microphone is backwards. And when you actually plug them in and you turn them on and you start gaming, these things are actually pretty good. They sound really nice. They aren't the neutral audiophile headphones. This is a fun headset. It's the kind of headset that looks at accurate sound reproduction and says, nah, let's make everything sound louder and bigger instead. And you hear that most with explosions. These have got 50mm drivers tuned with what's called a V shape on the EQ, and that means that the bass is boosted a bit and the treble is boosted a bit, and the mids, which is the bit where all the vocals and most of the details live, are slightly recessed. And in practical terms, this means that explosions in games sound massive, properly visceral. You get a physical bass response when you hear this. It's like having a tiny earthquake strapped to your head. And of course, that matters. It matters if you want an immersive experience in something like a first-person shooter. Movies as well sound really good through this. And you've got a nice bass response, but also an awful lot of clarity at the same time. Now, if you're the sort of person who listens to high-resolution music and cares about fidelity, then this headset is going to drive you slightly mad. The highs can be a little bit too harsh, almost sibilant on certain tracks. Vocals get pushed back behind the wall of bass. It's not designed for critical listening. It's designed for having fun. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to know what you're getting into. The headset does have different EQ presets. You've got music, game, and cinema, and they are perfectly fine for casual listeners, but they can't fundamentally change the basic tuning of the headset. This is a bass-heavy set that sometimes remembers other frequencies exist. The 7.1 surround sound feature is, well, it's there, it exists. You can press a button on the inline controller and it activates, and technically, yes, you now have virtual surround sound. But let's be honest about what that actually means. This is not Dolby Atmos. It's not some revolutionary spatial audio experiment that pinpoints exactly where footsteps are coming from. A friend of mine is an audio producer, and he has recently been working with the team behind the latest 007 game. But before that, he produced a little thing called London After Midnight, an audio drama based on the film that got destroyed in a Warner Brothers fire. I'll leave a link in the description if anybody's interested. This is a classic horror movie. It used a silent horror movie. Anyway, that production was mastered in Dolby Atmos, and I used that recording to put these things through their paces. And I described the sound here less as 7.1 surround sound and more like posh stereo. It makes things sound wider, sure, but it also softens some of the detail. For competitive gaming, you might actually be better off using the stereo mode. And for single-player immersion in a story-driven game, actually the 7.1 mode adds a nice bit of atmosphere. Just don't expect miracles with it. To be fair, there's a lot of other headsets on the market that are considerably more expensive that don't do any better than this with their 7.1 surround sound features. But this thing has a few nice features up its sleeve. Not least is the game chat balance dial on the inline controller. And this is really brilliant, and I can't believe that more headsets don't have it. If you've ever been on a Discord call whilst playing a game and had to choose between hearing your friends or hearing the enemy sneaking up behind you in-game, you'll understand why this feature could be transformative. It's a hardware dial that lets you adjust the balance between the game audio and the chat audio in real time without alt-tabbing between menus. Without having to stop what you're doing, you just reach down, you twist the dial, and suddenly your loud teammate isn't drowning out the game audio anymore. It's one of those features that seems obvious, and then you'll get annoyed that no other headset seems to do the same thing. And I think that that's actually a really smart feature for multiplayer. That is a company that is thinking about what its audience needs. And that, of course, means that you've got to install and run the Fifine Genie app, which gives you control over that sort of mixing. It's an awful lot like the Elgato Wave app or the Universal Audio one, but this gives you control over things like lighting setup that you'll use, and it's worth having a play with it if you want those features. On that little control you've got is actually quite useful for other things. You can turn your noise cancelling on and off. You can switch through different EQ modes or turn the surround sound effect on and off and control the overall volume of the headset. The only minor flaw seems to be the mute button, because with these on, that controller is dangling probably somewhere by your chest, and if you need to mute quickly because somebody just walked in the room, or you need to cough or something like that, or you need to sneeze, or your cat's yelling about dinner, then you've got to fumble around trying to find that small switch on the cable. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely less convenient than a sort of flip to mute boom mic or a button on the ear cup or something like that. In the heat of battle, when you need to mute immediately, fishing around for a while is not ideal. And then, of course, we move on to the actual microphone itself. And the condenser capsule that they've put in this boom is actually really good. It's clear, it's got a natural voice reproduction, it captures details well. It may be a tiny little bit on the quiet side out of the box, but a lot of this can be tuned either inside Windows or inside the software that comes with it. I've done some tests and it sounded really nice. In this clip I'm about to play, I have processed this in the same way that I would process my Shure MV7 mic, so you can hear what you can do with this thing. This is me reading a little bit from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that was actually my audition piece when I was acting. And I know most of this off by heart, although I do tend to get it wrong occasionally. But you know what? I'm fine with that, because Douglas Adams wrote this bit several times and never wrote it the same way twice. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is a totally insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this: many of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time. Many solutions were thought of for this, but most of them were concerned with the movements of small green pieces of paper, which was odd, because on the whole it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy. For me, the problem started when I pressed the noise cancelling button. And I really didn't like this feature at all. It seems to clip the ends of my words off, and there were a few artifacts in it as well, which made everything sound not muffled as such, just a tad robotic. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles, it's a totally insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive, they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. Not even quite that. There was a bit of something to the sound that I didn't like. I couldn't really work out what had gone wrong until I realised that it's the onboard processing, and it's doing this deliberately. The solution is embarrassingly simple. Turn off noise cancellation and don't use it. You can actually use software-based noise cancellation instead. Discord has Crisp built into it. NVIDIA Broadcast is free and works brilliantly. Elgato Wavelength now works without needing the Elgato hardware. At least it will do very shortly. And those are going to give you a far better experience, a far better result. And with Wavelength, you can load in your own VST that will do the noise cancellation for you. There's some free ones available online. And once you've done that, you've got a piece of hardware that actually really shines. It's clear, it's professional sounding, it's the kind of quality where people in Discord are going to ask you what mic you're using because they're impressed. It's disappointing that one of the features that's supposed to make this sound so much better, to me at least, is actually making it worse. I have to say, though, this is really well designed. The look of these are really smart, and you've got RGB lighting on as well, if that's the sort of thing that you like. For me, I'm not sure that I particularly like the whole idea of RGB lighting anyway. I think it's been a little bit done to death, and I'm not sure I want my peripherals to look like a low-budget sci-fi film. But you can turn this off as well if you don't want it, so that's a good thing. It's got 11 different effects, which feels... I don't know, it all feels a bit excessive to me, but then I'm old, I suppose. But this might be something that you think about, that it might enhance your stream or something like that. Just remember, if you like looking at this stuff, you can't actually see it when it's on. There's one good use of RGB in this, though, and that's on the microphone itself. Now, I mentioned the dreaded mute button a little while ago, but actually when you turn the mute button on, and this is quite smart, the microphone lights up red. And that's really useful because all of a sudden you have something that's in your line of sight without being too intrusive that lets you know whether or not your mic is muted. Genuinely, I think that's a lovely idea. So this headset I find a little bit difficult to call. It's certainly something that I think is for a very specific audience. At £59, it's not cheap enough to be an impulse buy, but it's significantly less than you would pay for a HyperX Cloud Alpha or a SteelSeries Arctus. The question is, do you actually need all of the features that it offers? I think it does suffer a bit from the fact that it only supports PC, Windows, PlayStation, Mac, and there's a whole audience out there who are on Android and Switch and Xbox who are going to miss out here. But for PC game streamers, this is a really great choice for a budget solution that's going to give you some really good performance. I loved the game chat balance feature. I think that is incredibly smart and well thought out. But I have to say, I probably wouldn't buy this myself. I mean, my solution, I've already got a solution. It's a £300 Shure MV7 Plus and £100 Sony MDR 750 Sync Studio monitors. But then I'm not your average game streamer. I think if somebody was just setting up or wanted something that they could get their teeth into that would give them good quality without breaking the bank, then I would probably recommend this. But if you're more seasoned or after something that's got a little bit more specificity to it, then you might find some of the features don't quite hit where you need. But that's what I think anyway, and I would love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What headsets do you use when you're gaming? Have you got a particular brand that you think is the perfect setup? And as always, the discussion continues in the comments. But that's it for this particular video. Thank you ever so much for watching, and don't forget to hit the like button and of course subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, happy gaming.